Camel is here for the next hour of Funding Drive, and he's going to be inviting you to call 403-220-5000, or you can go to the website CJSW.com and click on Donate Online, and we welcome your support, and thank you so much to everybody that was contributed to the CJSW today, and thank you to Cindy for joining me during the funding drive. It's a pleasure to connect with you, Cindy.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Thanks for being mission control for my show as well. It's always fun to share the time with you. You had the lion's share of work to do, but I really appreciate it.
It worked. A little bumpy when we first started, but then we got it was. And the good news is that there were a number of very fine folks who donated to CJSW, and we're well on our way to making this station thrive and success. And there are at least 8 people now in the booth here joining Camel. So,
holy cow! Well, have a great show, Camel, and thank you again, Gordon. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again. Happy radio, everyone. Thank you to all who donated.
Welcome to The Poetry Joint, a podcast about poets, poems, and poetics. My name, Stephen Donahue. I have a scant knowledge of poetry, and that is the starting point for this podcast, to see what I can learn.
There's a light on in the attic. I can see it from the outside, and I know you're on the inside. Looking out.
We're going live.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever your time zone. Welcome into Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission. We apologize for the late start. There were some technical issues that we needed to work through that were a little bit stickier than we were hoping, but
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Booster chamber pressure nominal.
All right, we're a little over 40 seconds into flight. 33 out of
Booster and
33
ship,
rapid
avionics
engines.
power and telemetry nominal.
Getting good call-outs, healthy systems.
Yes, it is fundraising week here at CJSW. You can call in to donate at 403-220-5000 or donate online at cjsw.com. We've got some guests in the studio, and we're going to get to them right away. Well, that was interesting. Welcome, everybody. We've got a full house, as was mentioned. I'll just do a quick introduction of the guest. We have Patti Lott is a writer, a poet. Recently, she won the 2025 Alberta Views short story contest. I don't know the title of the story or when it will be published, but I'm sure Patti can fill us in. Nash Lott is a writer, a poet. He was a guest on the Poetry Joint earlier this year. Danae Webb is a poet, a student at Mount Royal University, a member of MRU's Write Club, and Dr. Natalie Meisner at MRU refers to her work as super nuanced and engaging. No pressure there, Danae. Sheri-D Wilson is a poet, performer, educator, speaker, producer. She has a comprehensive website at sherywilson.com, which you can get lost in for days. Also known as the Mama of Dada. Her most recent book of speculative poetry is the Oneironaut 2, the second book in the epic trilogy she's engaged in. Now, I don't know, would any of our guests like to add anything?
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Happy to be here too, Stephen.
Well, maybe get you to go through that again.
Active bunch.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, first off, I guess business, the CJSW fundraiser swag review. So at $35 donation level, they have friends cards. At the $100 donation level, they have T-shirts, coffee mugs, live session CDs. At the $200 level, it's a choice of, or you get the coffee mug and the T-shirt and the live sessions and the friends card. And at the $500 level, I think they add in a mouse pad with all the other stuff. Our special Poetry Joint incentive, Sheri-D has provided copies of the first two books of the Oneironaut trilogy. And we'll get her to sign them later, and that'll go to the first $100 donor this hour to the Poetry Joint. The fundraiser theme this year is Play, Connect, Discover. So let's see what we can discover from our guests. Each guest/poet will draw a question from the magical box of questions, answer it, and anyone else who wants to comment can. And the poet who drew the question, just to break things up a little bit, will read one of their poems. So the box of questions is ready to go. Who would like to be the first? Patti.
Thank you. All right. My question says, do you read poems out loud to yourself? The answer is a resounding yes. I read them out loud to myself. I read them out loud to my poet husband, Nash, who's here. I read them out loud to the furniture and to the plants and to anybody who will listen, because I think that poetry needs to be heard to be assessed and to be enjoyed, because there's like a music or a rhythm or a cadence that you want in your poetry.
Anybody else?
Great answer. I agree with you. And I think that the poem then has a resonance that lives in your body. And that resonance is something that happens beyond the words themselves. And the frequencies of that resonance also go out into the world. And I think that when you read those poems out loud and you've memorized them, then they can actually live in the body and they can stimulate other things like memories and ideas. So, yeah, read out loud, and it's way more sexy, way more fabulous. What do you think, Danae?
I I agree. I think you also learn how to perform your piece then, and the kind of pauses and beats that the poem almost requires, that calls out to it. You find a natural rhythm that is then kind of easily replicated on stage if you so perform. But yeah.
True. What about you, Nash?
Well, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything everyone said. It took me a little while when I started reading out loud to get a sense of my pacing. And that's because I hadn't read out loud for a number of years. But when I started, you start to find the rhythm in it, and it's definitely helpful as far as making revision, because you definitely hear the sonic qualities of the work. And that's not something you get when you read it on a screen or on a paper. So it's definitely has a great value to it, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I took that question and applied a lot of great advice for people. And I guess you get to read a poem
You're
now.
ready for me to read a poem? Okay. Victoria. We moved for one watery week from a landlocked almost spring to a readier coastal one. Here left fledgling blossoms for full-winged flowers there. The island air held fish and barnacles, turkey vultures circled. Heavy-necked sea lions roared like grizzlies from across the rocky shore. Humpback whales slivered the water, breath stacks falling wet upon wet. Moon-burnished, the ocean rose gray as the whales. On a tiny island, too small for birds to nest, we were told there lives a wolf, cast there in a storm. A pack animal, perhaps a mother marooned alone at sea. I dream of her as white. That spring is again 500 miles away. Inside me lives a hole as big as an ocean, longing to be filled by a she-wolf swept away, by whales, by the taste of salt on sunburned lips.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay! We're clapping. That was beautiful.
Okay, number 2.
Oh, no.
Hey.
All right. The question I pulled reads, what perspective do you use for your poetry? Typically, I use the first person perspective, the I. There's very rare instances that I've used the you or the she. Most of the time it's from my own, because I write a lot about my own life, my own kind of perspective of the world, how I'm influenced by it, what kind of meanings I find from it. So yeah, mostly I. Lowercase, though. I think the I is very important to be lowercased. But yeah.
Okay, Nash.
So when I hear which perspective do you write from, I tend to think of there being many perspectives, not just from a vantage point of I or second person perspective, but your historical perspective, ideological perspectives. And so I think of an agglomeration of perspectives when I think about writing. I tend not to come from just one location, I think, if I could use that word. So yeah, I believe it's a collection or an agglomeration of many perspectives that exist in my life. Yeah.
Anybody else on perspectives?
Oh, it's a big one, because you can't really teach perspective. It's something that is experienced, and it is something that you must live, and you must experience it firsthand in living space. And I also write from the perspective of different characters and different living and non-living entities. Also of this earth and not of this earth. I also write from the perspective of plants, various things like the moon, river, ocean, and the various living organisms on the earth like stone. So this perspective is something that grows all your life, which is wonderful because it doesn't stay in one place ever, and it's always in a state of expansion and transformation. So it's I think one of the most important things to all artists and also to all living creatures.
I love that, writing from the perspective of the stone or the plant. If I were to add anything, it would just be that I think the job of the poet is to come from the perspective of the observer, of the one who slows down for long enough to notice those subtle things, those feelings, those observations that a lot of the time we are too busy to pay attention to or to capture. So that's what I try to do, is slow it down and pay attention to the details.
Great.
Very nice.
Very.
I guess that leaves you with a poem to read today.
Yes, it does. This is Peach Schnapps Reprise. It's Monday night. I'm tipsy on sweetened vodka, eyes red-rimmed, as my numb hands grip the steering wheel of my dreams to take the off-ramp on Sarcee to your house at 1 a.m., the blue dark sky pin-pricked with stars. I search for your constellation on a cool September night 2 weeks after our breakup. Or is it December now? Is that ice on the road? Throat swerving as Frank Sinatra croons through the speakers, and your hand cups my cheek, phantom limb fleeting. I blink. Once, twice against tears, acid burning, a repeat of memories in my purse. I've been nauseous since we said goodbye, stomach contracting on empty promises. I blame you. Purple streetlights contort on the pavement, shadows miming our last fight, muscle memory behind the wheel to Silver Creek, my forehead on the horn, blink, blink, blinking to find you next to me, passenger side with your palm pressed to my skin still, hot breath panting in the dark. Mouth turning sour, you lean closer, teeth sinking into my throat, puffs of peach nicotine congealing in between muscles and veins, your clawed hands scratching at my blackened liver while I'm catatonic in the seat, salt-damp eyes unseeing. Dripping drool pooling on my chest, you sob into my esophagus, shaking and beg me to become your nightmare, tender palm on my cheek. And I will. I'll do anything for you, my chaste incubus. It's Monday night, and I've convinced myself I hate the taste of peaches, I think.
Oh.
Great ending.
Thank you.
One of the long-distance donors to the fundraiser last year was Hiram LaRue. Hiram runs a poetry effort out of the United States. It's called Poetry X Hunger. It attempts to bring attention to problems of hunger through poetry. We featured an episode on that back in March 2024. Now, through the fantastic efforts by the CJSW crew, all back episodes of The Poetry Joint are available on YouTube. The July 17th, 2024 episode features one Sheri-D Wilson in conversation. February 2023, the first episode of The Poetry Joint aired with the guest Wakefield Brewster. Your contributions to CJSW supports efforts like that for a variety of programming. CJSW.com to donate online, or 403-220-5000. Call in, talk to one of the phone fairies, and make your contribution that way. Thank you. Okay. We've got lots happening. And have we got any donors yet? I'm not sure. If you're out there, feel free to call in at 403-220-5000 or go online, cjsw.com, to donate. I guess we'll go back to our magical question box. Who would like a question? Sheri-D.
Okay. I will say, if you give $100, not only do you get all those magical gifts from CJSW, but you also get 2 copies of my book of the Oneironaut, which is a trilogy that you may like. It's all written in poetry, and you would get not 1 and not 2. And if you give that $100, as I said before, you will also get a free copy given to you, signed by me, of Not 3 as soon as it hits the world.
Oh.
So that's pretty...
Almost makes me want to donate.
Yeah, well, come on. I would offer other things, more physical, but for that it has to be over 5, just saying, and then we can negotiate the terms. Okay. Where do your poems come from? Speaking of which, where do my poems come from? Well, where do all poems come from? Where do poems come from? That's such a good question. Well, you know, the muse sometimes, the environment, the things we see around us. You could, sort of think about Kerouac, and you could think about how he sketched. He would just go to somewhere if he didn't feel particularly inspired that day. He would, in the sense of from the gods or the alien voices, he would sketch whatever he saw with words. And I studied at Naropa, which is the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics. And at that time, Allen Ginsberg was teaching there, and that was what he would ask us to do. Just hit the streets and sketch what you see, and then maybe what you feel from what you see. And then always assume your own intelligence, all the things you've read, all the things you know. So where do poems come from? I have no idea.
Anybody
I'm
else?
glad you were the first one to say that. That doesn't make any of the rest of us feel bad.
Yeah. Well, it's a question I often ask on the program. It's, do people pick them out of the ether? Do they discover them, like you say, reading the news or going for a walk?
They do move through you. Mm-hmm. And certain poems just come and they move through you, and they insist on being written. And you can just... I had a few pieces that I had to stay up for several days because the poem insisted that I continue writing. And, sorry, I interrupted you, Patti.
No, you didn't, but I'm just nodding because where does a poem come from? Sometimes I don't think there's a tangible answer. Sometimes I'll be starting to write a poem thinking it's about one thing, and somewhere along the way, it turns into something completely different. And I don't really know where it came from. I think that some poems just want to be written.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. There's like a almost liminal quality to a poem, the way it comes into your life, into your brain. But sometimes you get an idea, and that poem doesn't want to be written no matter how much you love that idea or that theme, and it's there, but it just doesn't want to come out. So it's a good question. Where does it come from?
These are all really good points. I'm not quite sure who said it. There was something to the effect of you don't know what you think until you've written or until you write. And so I think what happens in that process is that your subconscious has stuff in it that wants to come out. And I'm not saying that is where all poems come from, but in the putting together of the words, the language, as you progress through the poem and as you let it drag you a certain direction or push you a certain direction, that stuff comes out from your deep self. And often you'll finish a poem and look at it and say, I didn't realize that I knew that. Or somebody else will look at your poem and they'll say, well, look at this. And it surprises you that you wrote that thing and that it has so much depth of meaning to it. So I think it does come from, deep inside our psyches and stuff often, in obviously working with the world around us.
Cool. Which I
And that said, the spirit of that, in the spirit of that, deep within ourselves, maybe even past lives, and sometimes maybe added on, that other entities are speaking through us. Sometimes. Rarely, but when they do, hey.
Including stones and trees.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, without question. Stones are living things. They're breathing and they're changing, and they're really powerful as far as speech, for me. Everybody's different,
Yeah, I think a lot of cultures have that feeling that what we describe as inanimate objects actually have a story to tell.
Yeah.
Do you have a poem to tell us?
Well, I was thinking of this because the veil is getting thinner and we are heading towards All Hallows, and it's one of my favorite times of the year because we get to listen to those who have gone to spirit, and we get to see more of our friends that are living in the spirit world. And so I wrote this, and it's sort of in tune with the season. It's called Weird. Back to the temple. It's time to go back in time, to change the flame, back to the fire within, back to the fire within. Rewind, rewild, rewind, rewild, rewind, rewild, reweird. Sentenced to death for heresy. She was burned at the stake as a witch, bird skull filled with red flight feathers. She was stoned to death as a witch. Capsized bottles of wishes, flesh hook worms and fishes. She was third eye beheaded for being a witch, thrown from a tower defenestrated in an hourglass shower of falling women, called a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch. A poisonous apothecary, scary as a witch, hung by a rope, no hope of being a diviner of fossils, onyx, eggs, bones, and rare shells. She was drowned for sorcery, lycanthropy, called a witch, a cunning woman, for sewing a severed head with a cross-stitch. She met the net of unfair ends by the dark of the moon, for kissing datura, for knowing the taste of apple, the eye of needle, the gaze of obsidian, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch. For want of wonder, the church killed her, to erect lady temples over mother shrines, for the purse, the cathedral curse, for saliva of snake, she was burned at the stake, because she wouldn't obey. She couldn't obey, 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 obey. She couldn't, she wouldn't obey, obey. Perish the thought of paying to pray, as we become the prey and our prayers become theirs to sell back to us, back to the temple. It's time to go back in time, to change the flame, back to the fire within. And her crime was, she drank of clear waters. She drank the waters of clarity. And as she was the river, she was cast out. And I hear she wore black clothing and odd costumes. She dressed in the hoots of owls as oak takes root in her soul. She howls to the moon and the turning tide of orgasms from steamy cunts and wanton wombs, of horny eggs in the fumes of sensual songs of longing, plain as the leaf plucked from the garden surrounded by you and pressed between her breasts like a flower, dressed in striped stockings and with jeweled salamanders in her hair. Oh, the prayer. Oh, the prayers that killed her. As they killed her again and again. They killed her again and again and again. They killed her. The earth.
I somehow have a feeling the spirits in CJSW of past musicians and DJs are awakened.
Okay, good.
And not to mention the spirits on the U of C campus. That was a great, Sheri. Thanks very much.
That was amazing.
Oh,
We are in the presence of an accomplished poet and a consummate performer.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here with you all, and I think it's great to share our poems because we're all the same poem.
Well, we're getting lots of comments on. They can. One of the advantages you have when you're working in the booth here is people can text in.
Oh.
And so.
What are we saying? Oh.
Which this is sick.
Oh, this is sick. Now that could be two
or
things.
Just write allegory. People are enjoying all the effort. We have someone else.
Okay, we're back to the question box, it appears here. How many times do you revisit and revise a poem? So, I tend not to think of it as revisiting. I tend not to leave a poem or let it leave me until I feel like it's essentially done. That doesn't mean that when I think it's done, it won't require something later. But I live with that poem until I feel it's as close as I can get it to finished. And then I probably seek out readers and see their opinion, and I read it out loud and all that. So pretty much I consider it, I'm with it until it's ready, essentially. And even if there are minor changes after that, but that's roughly what I would say I do. I live with it.
That's a great answer. I agree. And I also believe that a poem is never finished. I remember, there's this great little story where it was a group of us on this island. Brian Brett was there, and Patrick Lane, and Lorna Crozier, and myself, and Al Purdy. And we were partying the night before. There was much discussion of poetry and yelling of poems, and it was a really great night. And the next morning I got up early because I was sleeping in the parrot room with Tuco, and Tuco got me up, and I went downstairs to make coffee, and no one was there, and it was great, except then suddenly Al Purdy, with his hair all standing on end like an old crow or an old owl, like like that, and he came downstairs, and I said, I'm making coffee. He said, good. And then he started telling me some stories. And he was telling me this story, and it was really good. And then he was like, oh, and then he ran away. And I didn't know why he ran away. And then he ran back, and he had his book with him, and he opened the book, and he goes, when I was telling you the story, I suddenly, there was a whole new part, and I have to write it in now. And he had his published work, his published book there, and there he was just scribbling in his book and being excited at the age of 80 to have found a new line in his poem. So is it ever finished? I don't know. Maybe someone will even complete it when we're not on this plane.
Yeah, if I can just hop back in, Sheri, that's a really good point. And I think I've used this for other documents, but I call it a living document. So very similar to many poets, I think. They see their work, and years later they change it because they are different themselves.
Yeah.
Or they realize something better that they can do with it, right? So, yeah, it's a living document.
Yeah, true enough.
It's a living
That's
work,
a great word.
I see a lot of times poets will take a little bit of somebody else's poem to kind of highlight where their poem starts from. Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
I know my poems aren't done until I run them past Nash, one of my very first listener, because his brain works really differently than mine. And so he'll catch any logical errors, and he often helps me to really pick something up and make it more interesting. Yeah.
Or I ruin it all just outright, and she has to start again.
Yeah, I don't think a poem is ever really finished, and sometimes it's nice to dump it all out, maybe tweak it once or twice, and then let it rest, let it sit, take some time away from it, and then you come back with fresh eyes. And the same with revisiting old poems. That's always a good thing to do, because there's more that you can say, there's ways that you can tweak it, you kind of find the meaning hidden under that first verbal diarrhea that you put on the page. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. We're moving along fairly quickly here, but who would like the challenge of another question? Danae.
Oh, okay. I'll do it. Let's go.
Beauty wins.
Oh, no. This question is, when does a poem get a title? Ooh. I really hate naming poems. I struggle with the title a lot. That's... titles and dialogue, those are my writing vices, not vices, but troubles. So I think a poem sometimes it gets titled at the end. That's when I seem to find it, whether it's a word or a phrase from the poem itself, or something completely unrelated to the poem. I like doing that. I like naming poems that are kind of almost unrelated to the subject matter. So it's almost, you read it, you have this idea of what it might be, but then it's completely different. But there's still a through line, a thread that's connecting it all together. But yeah.
Sometimes I think the title is actually part of the poem. It informs the poem, whether it be the flow of the poem or the anti-flow of the poem, but it's still part of the poem. And I really love titles. And I think of hundreds of titles, and I write them all down, like naming a dog or a child. And you write them all down, and then you start eliminating them and then putting them together, and that's a real jazz exercise.
I'm very much there with you on that. I love titles, and I would say I'm more in the camp of I end up deciding them at the end, long after. But even if I have a title at the beginning, we've all said this idea that you start writing a poem and it'll often take you somewhere else. So you might start with a title.
Mm-hmm.
Often that doesn't end up being it, because that title doesn't respond well enough to what you've written after you've had that title. So it tends to be, to me, that you end up really having to live with the poem, and as you said, Danae, it's to find something that's tangential but sufficiently connected that it actually opens the poem up more, right? If you give it this really restrictive poem, a title, to the poem, then it kind of closes it into a little box.
Mm-hmm.
But if you leave it something tangential, but still works with the poem, it kind of gives you other layers and opens it up for the reader.
Exactly.
I don't think I can add anything. I'm random. I'm somewhere in the middle of what everyone's saying. I'm just glad if I have a title.
A good balance. So that's what it is. Yeah.
Well, it's fair enough. Everybody agreeing on everything. Do you have another poem, Danae?
I do have another poem. I have another one for you guys. This one is A Recipe for Clementine Jan. Rough edges of heat prickle against the seams of my arms, hair's dewed with sweat, and my hand becomes a poor excuse for shade, the flat disc smelling of crushed clementines. The heavy scent of summer clings to the pores of my fingertips, a distraction from my cattle slowly dying in the fields. Still, the sun sears their milky eyes, pink tongues lolling out, bellies distended, and gentle cowbells silent on the oppressive breeze. The locusts will come, buzzing in hordes of thousands to steadily grow with the rising heat over the valley and begin to eat my cows, beautiful bodies splayed on the burnt grass, brown wheat their burial shroud as the drone of tiny wings drown out the lowing of my once loved cattle. They won't come for another hour, waiting till the ever-present sun has warmed their meal of sweetened meat just right. So I wait on my hill and watch as the last calf falters, bow legs bending to crack against dry earth, lungs fluttering and eyelids sputtering before quieting. The valley is bathed in stillness, and I will still listen for one last blow from my cattle, standing vigil before the locusts arrive, and inhale the last scent of clementines. I will peel open another, leave it on the ground for my tender herd to feast on, smear summer citrus on their lips for one last taste.
Great, thanks, Danae.
Of course,
I guess we'll hit a little break and interesting aspects of producing the poetry joint is finding ways to involve the community. In this case, I was able to find a neighbor who was willing to put his voice to some lyrics.
Don't look back in anger. Slip and slide the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play? You said that you'd never been, but all the things that you've seen slowly fade away. So I start a revolution from my bed, 'cause you said the brains I had went to my head. Step outside, summertime's in bloom. Stand up beside the fireplace. Take that look from off your face. You ain't ever gonna burn my heart out. And so, Sally can wait. She knows it's too late as we're walking on by. Her soul slides away. But don't look back in anger, I heard you say. Take me to the place where you go, where nobody knows if it's night or day. Please don't put your life in the hands of a rock and roll band who'll throw it all away. I'm gonna start a revolution from my bed, 'cause you said the brains I had went to my head. Step outside, 'cause summertime's in bloom. Stand up beside the fireplace. Take that look from off your face, 'cause you ain't ever gonna burn my heart out. And so, Sally can wait. She knows it's too late as she's walking on by. My soul slides away, but don't look back in anger, I heard you say. So Sally can wait. She knows it's too late as we're walking on by. Her soul slides away, but don't look back in anger, I heard you say. So Sally can wait. She knows it's too late as she's walking on by. My soul slides away, but don't look back in anger. Don't look back in anger, I heard you say. At least not today.
Thanks, Kevin, for that. I remarked to Kevin his voice sounded an awful lot like Leonard Cohen's, and perhaps I should have had him reading a Leonard Cohen piece. He remarked he was from Montreal, so I guess that accent of Leonard Cohen's and Kevin's is a Montreal accent. Things you learn while hosting the Poetry Joint. Yes, we try and involve the community in all aspects of CJSW, volunteering, highlighting what's happening out in the larger world. Your support helps with all of that. CJSW.com to donate or 403-220-5000. Cheers. Okay. Let's, we were talking about how much poetry pays. So the show total so far is $460.79. The station total is $123,000, $701.32. We have 6 donors to the show: Patrick R., Roxanne, Jonathan, Graham, Adam, and Cholo. The $100 incentive bonus for Sheri-D Wilson's Oneironaut 1 and 2 has been claimed, and I think we have another book out there. I'll just have to get the title for it, and we'll mention that on the next break. So if listeners have a question, they can add it to the question box. You can text 403-220-3991 or note it on your donation form at cjsw.com, or when you talk to the phone fairy at 403-220-5000. We still have a few questions left in the question box and a little bit of time, so we'll continue on.
The question is, do you write your poems or type them? I, for a long time, thought that I would be a purist and write everything out by hand, longhand. And I do like doing that, but I mostly don't. I mostly type them because I make a lot of changes as I go, and it's kind of tedious just to write that longhand. So, yeah, yay for computers.
I'd like to say, I'd like to add to that, but before I say that, I would like to say thank you to the donors and thank you for supporting the show. I think it's a really important show, and the work that Stephen does in this show and the community means a lot to the community, means a lot to the writers in this community, and we thank you. So thank you for supporting this show, and keep on listening. And I would like to add, there is that I prefer writing by hand and also writing by keyboard and also improvising. Like one time I was invited to do this performance at this violence against women thing at this art gallery, and I was working on other projects. I forgot about it, I mean, I didn't forget about it. It was still in my book, but I had put it off a bit, and so I was working with some elders, and I was like, oh no, I have to go do this performance, and I don't seem to have written it. And they were like, you have great stories, and you have great things to say about violence against women. So, just come up with like general umbrella ideas and write down that title, and then tell the story as you would from your heart and from your rhythm and from your body. Just tell it and go there and do it, and then have this book, and then turn the pages and people will think you have written it. So, it's not really deceitful, but it is a twist of the eye. And I said, like, okay, I could do that. Yes. And I took my confidence, my newfound confidence, because I was not confident before, took my newfound confidence, went to this art gallery, and had the titles written, riffed on it, improvised the show. And it so happened that my friend Lynn Elder was recording it. And I didn't ask her to. She just also improvised, and she recorded it. And then after, she gave it to me. And then I gave it to someone else and said, hey, I wonder what this would look like as a manuscript. And I gave it to another friend, and she typed it up for me. And that was Colette, and she typed it. And then she gave it back to me, and then that was a book called Open Letter, Woman Against Violence Against Women. I did edit it a fair amount after that, but there is the improvisation possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Well, for those of us who've lived with horrific handwriting skills for our lives, I've been on my computer, I would say 99% of the time. Unless I'm in the backcountry and there's no power and there's no computer, in which case then, yeah, I'll use a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper. But otherwise, I definitely go straight to the computer, for sure.
Nice. I like using a mix of both mediums. When I first write a poem, I write it by hand. I find there's a really nice, the mind-to-hand connection really comes through, and you're just able to go and almost let it kind of pour out of you. But then I go to the computer to edit, to tweak, to refine it a little bit, and that's kind of my routine with a poem. Yeah.
And there's also the phone.
And there's the phone. I try not to use the phone too much.
I try not to use it too much, but if there's no...
If it comes to me, it comes to you.
You know, if I'm driving, I can't pull out my book. I'm totally joking.
You know, speech to text, yeah.
I'm totally joking, making it up.
We've got another person in the studio who is also a poet and a member of the U of C Poetry Club, Abbas, who's been busy huddling in the background here. I'm just going to ask him if he'd like to come up and contribute anything to the discussion.
If I may just say so, yeah, it's been a great show, and I don't really have anything to say. You all had quite interesting answers to a lot of the questions, whether it's type to write. Like, I like that conversation, right? Because we have computers, and we kind of use that these days, so it's always kind of hard to write with that. But yeah, good stuff, I'd say. I'll give it back to you.
And do you want to do another poem, Patti?
Thank you. I'd be happy to. I'm choosing this one based on Sheri-D having reminded us of what season we're in and our conversation about titles. Here's a title that matters to set up the poem. It's called Poem Composed While Cleaning Toilets. What fresh hell is this? First Milbert's tortoise shell of the year, jackrabbits more brown than white, pussy willows emerging punk tufted, and me hunkered over a porcelain shell, elbow deep in the back end of life. But a house is not a home, etc. And I would rather work magic in this cauldron than suffer the fecal indignities of 1690s Versailles, when rough-hewn peasant and milquetoast nobility relieved themselves in castle corners or beneath the great hall's ale-strewn table. No, I will happily be the potion mistress, dearth of frog toes notwithstanding. Beyond the bathroom window, I do, in fact, hear frogs, a chorus, a boreal brethren welcoming crocuses, first ones to the ball, slips of mauve in shawls of sable moon. I see the grand willow spinsters we call the weird sisters, a hypochorism born of evening walks, past ancient tangles and braids, their lichen leggings of sage and tangerine. Perfectly content, these woody crones, to reign over droppings left by rabbit, elk, and moose, each agglomerate of pellets larger than the last. The elks quadruple those of the rabbit, the moose several times again. Regarding frog business, I'm unclear, but there are strict instructions for humans who shit in the woods. Rules involving small trowels and plastic bags that zip shut. Anyway, here I am with what might have been a poem about sable-winged moths floating on a half-moon breeze, or a sky of tangerines squeezed over Casper Mountains. But instead, it's about toilets, and I end on bended knee, gazing into a portal of things past.
I see the hour is running by fairly quickly, the idea of the Poetry Joint is to support the poetry community as much as possible. Do any of you have anything upcoming you'd like to make listeners aware of?
Oh, actually, I do. Tomorrow night. That's tomorrow. Whatever day it is. What day is it? Thursday. Thursday night at Shelf Life Books. And it's going to be a really good night because I'll be there and Micheline Mailer is going to be there. And really famous people that I can't remember right now because my brain is slightly addled. Because
making you work hard. Yeah.
Making you work really hard now, Stephen. But it's going to be a good night, and it's going to be at 7:00. And the added incentive is that Bill A. Nickerson just happens to be flying in to visit me, and because it's my mom's 90th birthday, and he's my husband, my gay husband, who always flies in for family events, and so he's flying in, and he will be there as well.
Wow, yeah.
Well, you asked, Stephen.
Yeah. I don't want to force anybody to top that, but if you, Danae, what's happening at Mount Royal with the Right Club, or what are you doing?
I know that Right Club is having an event, I think in December the 4th. It is a genre event. I don't quite sure of the specifics for that. And then, yeah, there's an honor seminar happening as well on the 5th of December. So that'll be very fruitful, I think, fruitful discussion. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming tonight and representing the blooming face of poetry in Calgary, the up-and-coming enthusiasts for
Thank you for
poetry.
having me. It was very, very special, very wonderful.
Well, if I can just add a little bit, so I'll be there tomorrow night as well. Sheri, I think both of us might be. Possibly, no, I might be. But we'll see you there tomorrow at Shelf Life. But as far as myself, I'm part of the Single Onion board. And so just to keep everybody a little bit in the loop, Single Onion has 2 events every month, the first Thursday of the month and the third Thursday of the month. And the third Thursday is one that happens at Shelf Life Books, generally speaking. And that's by invitation, and the poets who come there are exceptional. And then on the first Thursday of the month, we also have the open mic for Single Onion. And that one, normally it's been at the Erratics Indie Club on 11, but at the moment it's under construction. So we are going to have 2 events at Cafe Gravity in Inglewood. The first one is November, I believe the 6th is the Thursday. And then the first Thursday of December, and I apologize, I don't remember the date. But if anybody's interested in coming out and seeing some fantastic poets, the open mic is very interesting. And generally speaking, there's also a feature at the end of that, 1 or 2 features. So you'll get some really good poetry in either of those events. The third week of every month is not an open mic, though. So if you're going to watch some exceptionally...
But that's tomorrow night. That's the Single Onion event. I totally forgot that.
Correct.
And who else is reading?
So, you know what? You said a couple of them, and I've forgotten the rest of the list at the moment.
But they're really famous people, so just look it up on the
I do
Shelf
apologize.
Life.
Yes, you could
I
go to Shelf Life.
apologize too. Yeah. I should have known that inside my brain.
You could go to Shelf Life.
Bruce Hunter.
Okay.
Bruce Hunter's one of them. He has a new book. It's really good. I read it. Yes. And then there's other people that I'm now, again, it might come to me in a flash and I'll scream it out.
Well,
Do
thank
we
you
have more
everybody
donors?
for listening and donating. And I see our next show is getting ready to start. So thank you to all the guests for coming in, making this a real magical evening. It's been super. It makes my job so easy.
Thanks very much, Stephen.
I love it.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
And thanks to
You're
all
a
the donors.
gem. You're a gem.
Good night, everybody.
Very lively.
Oh.
Just play this one over here.
The what?
Our